Good morning. Call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Committee. And we'll move right along to, well, I see we have a quorum, so move right ahead to the agenda. Item number 1, Paul Lippold, 6441 South Highway 45, Town of Black Wolf, conditional use permit review.
I'll make a motion to.
Second.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the topic? See none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, move on to item number 2. BL Titan LLC 1351 Lake Harbor Lane, Town of Algoma Plan Development District.
Staff report is as follows. The applicable ordinance is chapter 23. The town of Algoma had no response. There were no objections. Proposed use is compatible with adjacent uses. Recommendation is for approval.
Also move.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yes, I have some discussion on that.
Just go ahead.
I don't think this is a planned development district. Okay, it's a single parcel. There's one residence on it. There's not the possibility of putting any more buildings on it because it would not meet the shoreline setbacks for anything. The building that's on there doesn't meet that. And according to the Winnebago Code 23.8-22, paragraph 14, it reads, planned development PDD district. A planned development districts are a special type of zoning district and are initially proposed by a property owner who desires a mix of uses or flexibility in a project's overall design. Each district is unique and therefore has its own set of development standards that are documented in the general development plan and associated development agreement. If any PDD districts are, if any, PDD districts are numbered specifically, i.e. PDD-1, PDD-2, etc. This does not have that development plan, so I don't think it can be considered a planned development district. I have no objection to the rezoning it to R2, but I just don't think, I think we should strike the planned development district portion of it.
Anything? Agree, disagree?
We disagree completely. That's why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And can we get, what was the reason for
The PDD is because of the private road. They couldn't meet the road right away frontage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they do the planned development district. This is why we have the planned development district in the ordinance, is to approve things like this on a private road, period.
Is there some kind of an ordinance that says that? Where does it say that in the ordinance? This ordinance says that you need a document documenting that, and you're supposed to have that document for each planned development district. Doesn't have that. So how can you have a planned development district?
Well, we'll agree to disagree on that. So I don't know how to answer that beyond that.
I have a question for Brian. So we've done these before on private roads. The private road is what
Dictates.
is so much a part of creating a PDD.
Right.
Okay. That was my understanding. Okay.
When I looked at the chapter. So did the property owner initially propose this? Is the property owner the one that initiated the desire to mix the uses?
Carrie Roll, the zoning administrator, is the one that initiated this or indicated to the applicant that this was necessary in order to accomplish what they needed to.
Okay.
What other choice did they have?
None.
So then that house would come down.
They couldn't do anything without the PDD.
They'd be stuck with what they have. Yeah.
Okay.
Why can't you just,
Yeah.
I mean, you're
just-
rezoning it, you're making it more compliant than it was before.
With the rezoning, they need the planned development district to create the lot because it does not meet the road right of way frontage requirements.
It didn't meet it before.
That's correct.
And
That's why this is necessary, because they could not accomplish what they are asking to unless they have the PDD.
So, looking at code 23-22, it says. Documented, okay, each district is unique and therefore has its own set of development standards that are documented in the general development plan. Documented. I mean, the fact that we don't, it seems to me like we don't have it documented.
What document are you looking for?
this makes it sound like every planned development district is supposed to have a document that sets the rules for that district.
And that's correct, because every PDD is a unique district in and of itself based on the lot or the development plan.
And
That's why the PDD is in there. In order to create different lots on a private road, because private roads don't meet the road right of way curriculum. Without the PDD, anything on a private road could not be developed in any way, shape, or form. That's why the PDD is in the ordinance.
Can you just refresh my memory? Is Walden a PD?
Yes, it was under the old chapter 23, which is R5, which
Yeah.
was the condominium, but that's what would be the PDD in this current ordinance. Yes.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. PDDs are often tools used by planning and zoning departments to get these exceptions, these odd things that you would, to get them all covered. So that way and actually with it being a PDD, it actually gives you more oversight over what goes on the property.
That is correct.
It doesn't give us less oversight. It gives you guys more oversight into everything that goes on that property. Because anything that would change from whatever they present to us, they have to come back to us for.
That's correct.
So it's actually giving us more oversight.
How many of these residential properties are within a commercial? I mean, to me, there was a house that was amongst commercial all around it, right? Is that what I understood?
You're talking in the county, just in general, or
No, just around this.
In that area,
There's
I mean, we're
only-
talking almost Lakeview.
I believe there's only one house in that area that's B2, but I'm not sure about this.
As someone who
Yeah.
delivers mail in that area, yes, there's only one house in that area.
Thank you. So I guess. Where does it come? I mean. When do we say no? I mean, if there's exceptions. Provided,
It's on a case by case basis. And there are many private roads in the county where they could not develop and or split their parcel without the planned development district because they would not meet the road right of way requirements. of a lot creation.
So without this PDD,
They don't
the
get to
zoning
do.
is a moot point. Zoning
That's
change.
correct.
Yeah.
What is the significance of that, the fact that it seems like that PDD -1, -2, et cetera, it's not there? If I understood you correctly, Howard, that was,
Yeah, you know, to me, this says that we need some kind of a document that sets the agreement for this, and
It
you
says
don't have it.
at the end of it, it says if any. Which doesn't mean you need one, it just, if there is one. To have it submitted.
if any.
Yeah, for things like this is a very commonly used tool when it comes to planning and zoning as far as, you know, I know with the city. We did this a lot with plan developments, just because we wanted oversight over future developments. And that's why I wanted to specify that this is a tool that is used for this exact kind of thing.
That's correct.
And again, as with delivering mail, I deliver on a lot of private roads, and there are none that are roadworthy as far as, and I'm sure those had PDDs on them when they were all developed as well, because those roads, most of them are 1 car wide. They call it a private road, it's a private drive. So, any more discussion on this, or
I don't have any.
making sure?
Well, so his proposal or suggestion was to do the, what was it, R2 versus not approving the PDD?
Yeah,
Is that what, could you refresh my memory on that, what you said?
well, I don't see that where we need the PDD to approve the R2 zoning. Because we're taking something that is becoming, and we're making it more compliant than it was before. Yes, it's not totally compliant, but the property is more compliant than it was.
Back to you, Brian. So if we turn down the PDD, we can still change the zoning?
You can, but it'll be a moot point.
Yes.
We ready?
I'm done with discussion.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Right.
No,
Watching everybody's mouth, it was 3-2. Did we want to do a roll call, or are we good?
we're good.
Okay,
I'm good.
I just want to make sure
But what was the motion?
the motion was to
Approve the
approve it.
PDD.
Okay, all right, 3-2, all right, I just want to make sure I get that correct.
Item number 3, BL Titan LLC, 1351 Egg Harbor Lane, Town of Algoma, zoning change.
Staff report is as follows. Chapter 23 is the applicable ordinance. No response from the town of Algoma. There were no objections. Proposed use is compatible with adjacent uses. The recommendation is for approval.
Need a motion.
I'm gonna move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the item? Okay, see no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 4, Bond et al. 1747 and 1743 Burr Oak Road, Town of Utica, zoning change.
Staff report is as follows. Chapter 23 is the applicable ordinance. The town of Utica has approved. Town action is advisory due to shoreline jurisdiction. There were no objections. 4, proposed use is compatible with adjacent uses. The recommendation is for approval.
I say move.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No, not opposed. Item passes. Move on to number 5. Hothead Properties LLC, 1577 Deerwood Drive, Town of Neenah, zoning change.
Staff report is as follows. Chapter 23 is the applicable ordinance. the town of Neenah has approved. Town has right of denial per terms of zoning ordinance. 2, town findings were as follows. 1, town has an adopted land use plan. 2, action agrees with town adopted town plan. 3, there are no objections. 4, proposed use is compatible with adjacent uses. The recommendation is for approval.
I move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this one? Not seeing anybody. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item number 6, Julie Chakowski, 8825 Wolf River Road, Town of Wolf River, zoning change.
Staff report is as follows. Chapter 23 is the applicable ordinance. 1, the town of Wolf River has approved. Town action is advisory due to shoreline jurisdiction. Town findings were as follows. 1, town has an adopted land use plan. 2, action agrees with town adopted plan. 3, there were no objections. 4, proposed use is compatible with adjacent uses. Recommendation is for approval.
So move.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion on the item? A lot of shaking heads, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unopposed. Item passes. Move on to number 7, Chakowski 2, west parking lot at Wolf River Road and River Lane, Town of Wolf River, zoning change.
Staff report is as follows. Chapter 23 is the applicable ordinance. 1, the town of Wolf River has approved. Town action is advisory due to shoreline jurisdiction. Town findings were as follows. 1, town has an adopted land use plan. 2, action agrees with town adopted plan. 3, there were no objections. 4, proposed use is compatible with adjacent uses. Recommendation is for approval.
I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the item? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unopposed, motion passes. Accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
1 second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Or adjourned. So.
Oh, so you didn't have the minutes, so they didn't come up at all.
Right. I was wanting to read the name.
Here's the May 5th ones. I don't have this view. No, she'll read them. Yeah.
Bring the secretary, I think she will be here for the approval of the minutes. Keep the notes. Okay, we'll call this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Committee to order. See, we have a quorum. First item on the agenda would be approval of the minutes from May 5th planning meeting and May 26th.
For the viewing minutes, if you don't mind, Shauna had emailed me some potential changes that she would like to make, or additions, I guess, to the viewing minutes, of which I have copies for. Is that okay?
Thank you, Mr. Bougie. I think that those can be left out.
Oh,
Those
okay.
were the ones that we just voted on, correct?
We didn't.
We didn't vote on them.
We didn't
No,
vote yet.
no, I don't believe so.
Can I see that?
Yeah, this is what you emailed.
Yeah, we can pass this around.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll leave it to you to decide whether you want to.
That is. These are the ones that we just voted on at the 7:30 meeting.
No, we didn't vote on
We
anything.
didn't vote on
7:30 meeting. We voted on items on the, you know, we
Okay,
didn't vote on minutes.
we can look at them. I don't think they're necessary, but we can look at it.
I wasn't there. I didn't.
This will then.
I guess I wasn't there, so. I can't really hit
Yeah.
the end of it.
I'll move for approval of the minutes as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Any more discussion on the item?
No, sorry.
No.
Okay, not seeing any. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
See none opposed. Minutes passed. Now, before we move on to item number 2, I just would like to make a couple of comments to those that are here. If you could, make sure you please silence your cell phones, put them on vibrate at however you would do it. And I will not be accepting any cross-talking at this meeting. People do not talk to each other, you talk to the committee. And then if the committee, if the committee will, we can come back and get answers to questions. But we're not here to have a group discussion. We're here for us to get information from everybody that is in attendance. So I ask that we have no cross discussion, no back and forth. Please no mumbling under the breath if that moment comes. And I know there's been a lot of frustration with this on both sides. So just wanted to get that out in the open before we begin this process. And with that, we will open it to public comments on agenda items. Is there anybody here who would like to speak?
I would.
Hey, name
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is John Smeese. I'm a lawyer with Godfrey & Kahn in our Green Bay office, and I represent the city of Oshkosh on this item related to the flood storage district. I reside at Fort Listics and Wood Drive in Green Bay, so I'm not a resident of the city of the county. I'd just like to take a moment here and introduce the city team that's with us today. Here we have city manager, Mr. Mark Loloff here, and Lynn Lawrenson, the city attorney, is joining us as well. Steve Godey is here also to keep answering technical questions that might arise, to keep me in check there as far as the technical issues involved. So, members of the committee, the request of the city today is simple. The city requests that the county not withdraw the county's own application to create a flood storage district within the Sawyer watershed. Proposed ordinance changes to create the flood storage district should be forwarded to the county board for approval. And you saw this in my letter I wrote on the eve of your meeting last month. Some of the positions we outlined are there in the letter, and I can answer questions on it. But I'll just go through very quickly here the high level background of the problem and the way we see a good path forward. So the last comprehensive firm modeling for Sawyer Creek, the watershed in Sawyer Creek, was in the 1980s. The 1990s through the 2010s saw a lot of flooding in the watershed, as everyone knows. In fact, we had 5 presidential disaster declarations in that time frame. As a result, the city of Oshkosh took certain actions that included a watershed study, planned and built projects, including 4 large detention basins, 2 bridge replacements, a dredging of Sawyer Creek, and acquiring and raising flooded houses. And the city costs with projects intended to address this is estimated to exceed $10 million. The DNR required remapping of the floodplain and floodway upon the completion of these projects. And that was done. Strange completed remapping and submitted maps to the DNR, and this included the large existing flood storage upstream in Sawyer Creek. But the DNR determined that this existing flood storage could not be counted in that analysis. As a result, despite all these projects being completed by the city, the floodplain in the city has increased from the 1980s level, and more properties would have to be brought into the floodplain as a result. And that would include development restrictions and flood insurance costs, et cetera, for those properties. Removal of these areas from the mapping puts a number of properties in the floodplain areas downstream along Sawyer Creek, and includes 42 single-family homes, 12 multi-family properties, 7 commercial buildings, 6 two-family homes, 30 garages, 10 sheds, 8 other buildings, and an additional 69 acres of land. Most of these properties are in the city, and some of these notable specific properties include the Mercy Hospital site, the Evergreen Retirement Community, commercial buildings along Kaler Street, including a portion of the U-Haul site, and several apartment buildings along Sawyer Creek. So with that understanding the background and of the problem, let's talk a little bit about the solution that the city supports in our and FEMA as well. The least intrusive way to address this problem was the creation of flood storage areas. 29 flood storage areas were identified where floodwaters naturally pooled already. 20 of those 29 were the city and 9 in the county. And that area is a much larger area than those in the city, even though numerically they're less. The city adopted the flood storage areas in March of 2019, and the county application before you would adopt the remaining 9 areas within the county. Flood storage is less restrictive than floodplain floodway mapping, just to make sure I'm going to understand that distinction. It's something that I've had to appreciate myself coming at this relatively new, but there's a big difference. With flood storage, owners can farm. There's no impact on manure spreading. The land can be filled, altered with compensating elsewhere in the same flood storage area, and the property can be developed. Mapping merely documents existing conditions and does not alter conditions. It's sort of a statement of how things are. Now, there are consequences to the county of not adopting the map as contemplated in the application. An act not adopting those maps would be just contrary to the county's own ordinance, which already defines areas as floodplain, as areas that have to be designated floodplain areas for other regulatory purposes. Maps have already been adopted by the DNR and FEMA already, and after there have been no objection to the FEMA determinations already made in the past. Additionally, the county would risk losing oversight of floodplains within the county under section 87.30 of the statutes, which allows the city to petition the DNR to impose designation of flood areas in the county. That would likely be more restrictive floodway and flood fringe designations that you would see.
And my phone's the one that makes me. I turned it off before I could. Sorry about that. No problem. So should that happen, should the city have to petition the DNR to take over the management of this, it would likely be a more restrictive floodway, flood fringe designation as a result after the DNR were to impose those designations. There's also the risk of adverse consequences for flood insurance. And finally, there's a litigation risk. So if this isn't adopted, this mapping, there's a potential city lawsuit against the county for abuse of discretion, failing to take action. Additionally, downstream property owners may have their own causes of action for damage if flood areas are not regulated and later causing flooding downstream. So in conclusion, the city would respectfully request that this committee decide not to withdraw the county's own application to create a flood storage district and forward this matter onto the county board for approval. It's a summary of our thoughts on it at this point, and happy to answer any questions or my team.
Should I go ahead first?
Have at it.
So this is just me talking to you, John, because I can't do it.
Well, you can talk, you can ask questions if you want.
Okay, so in your letter, I'm going to take exception to something where you stated we did not notify all property owners because the city didn't notify all property owners either. That's just a statement I'm going to make. You're new at this game. I've been on board since this started in 2019. That's just a statement. you just mentioned that one of the caveats, if we don't approve and proceed with this permit, there could be a lawsuit. There could be a lawsuit from the 9 people in the county that have storage areas mapped, and we're never told about this. And I remember in 2019, sitting at a table, and Mr. Kerry Rowe presented the map. And my first question was, do these people out in the outlying town areas know that they are mapped in the storage? They have storage areas mapped on their property. And his answer to me was, I don't think so. That got me a little bit fired up that they weren't informed. And I know this is all about litigation, and I understand that you're an attorney, but after reading this letter several times, there are some exceptions here to things. And I personally appreciate what the city has paid in millions of dollars. But again, not all players were informed properly. And the city did keep developing in this area, creating some of its own problems that originated when the Sawyer Creek development area started in the 70s. I appreciate the letter. I wish it was more in a timely fashion, because some of us committee members did not get this letter at all for our May 5th meeting, and I'm one of those. So I'm reachable by many ways, but that's why I asked at the May 5th meeting if I can have some minutes to read it. And I see the options we have, so I appreciate all that information. Thank you. That's all.
Excuse me, my apologies. That we didn't give you a copy letter. I guess I almost maybe didn't have your email address.
I'm over it. It's okay.
Are there any other comments?
But thank you.
And before we move on to the next person, I just want to on top of that, I'm going to probably steal a little bit of your guys' thunder here. As far as the notification process goes, the county is not actually required to notify anybody. They went over and above notifying people. So the notification is a moot point legally. Because
on both sides.
Yes, on both sides. So just getting that out there for everybody, so we have something to think about there. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Oh, yeah. For this.
Yes.
So attorneys.
Smees. Yeah.
Okay. How do you spell your name?
S-M-I-E-S.
Okay, I was right. Okay. So you were talking about something contrary to the floodplain at one point. When you were discussing, you were sharing with us the consequences. I don't know if you could look back at your notes, but you were talking about contrary to the floodplain. Could you repeat any of that?
Yeah, so if this were withdrawn, this application, then be contrary to county ordinance, which already defines areas as floodplain. As areas that have been designated floodplain areas for other regulatory purposes. So maps have been already adopted by the DNR and FEMA, with no objections to the FEMA determination.
Okay, so one thing that I was concerned about is that it sounds like they were already adopted. Are you talking about the 4 amendments that you're asking us, that the city is asking us to add as far as the text? Because I studied the text on the 4 proposed amendment changes, and it sounds to me like it's flip-flopped, that because we have not adopted any of those text changes yet.
We have DNR and FEMA have adopted with no objections to the FEMA determination being received. So in that sense,
what are the
for other regulatory purposes? So I think, we're talking about the ordinance, the county ordinance that says that a floodplain area is that which has already been designated as a floodplain for other regulatory purposes. So
can you show me where that is? Is it chapter 26 or?
I think it's referenced letter. If we look at so if you look at the letter, the other copy of the letter.
I do. I just have to dig it up here.
Pick that up on the second page.
Okay,
The midway down, excuse me, I should probably drink some water, but had too much coffee, not enough water. The flood storage areas which are covered by the county application qualify as quote other designated flood areas, close quote, within the meaning of the county's ordinance and applicable Wisconsin definitions. Subsection 26.3-2, parent 26 of the county ordinance defines floodplain as land which has been or may be covered by floodwater during the regional flood. It includes the floodway and the flood fringe and may include other designated floodplain areas for regulatory purposes. So this, our point here is that the 2018 FEMA Act recognized flood storage areas within the Sawyer Creek watershed as an example of other designated floodplain areas for regulatory purposes within the community ordinance. So I don't know if that makes sense.
yeah, I took that to mean, that the changes that the city wants us to make as a county, those four I'm looking at the text, those four proposed text changes. That those were, that we have not voted on that yet. And yet you're talking as if we did.
I think the point is that there's,
If I might be wrong about this, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but
maybe the bottom line is the designation's been made by other regulatory authorities at DNR and FEMA. That's what I'm saying. So under the county ordinance, it has a definition of this other designated floodplain areas, which says, hey, if there's some other regulatory authority that has already defined it as the floodplain, then that is a flood designated floodplain area. So FEMA and the DNR have both done that already. That makes sense. So therefore, this area we're talking about is a designated floodplain area for regulatory purposes. That makes sense.
not having anything to do with the text that you're asking us to change in the actual ordinance and stuff.
It does have to do with a prior approval or non-approval by this committee. That makes sense. It's based on action with DNR and FEMA. Hopefully that clarifies it. Maybe it's clears mud after my attempt.
Yeah, I think so. Well, okay, thank you. That's it.
Anybody else have anything for Mr. Smees? Thank you very much.
I just wondering if staff has any between comments or whatever. All right, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Anyone else like to speak to this item? Your turn.
Thank you. Bill Benson, 2091 Clareville Road. I have numerous things to say, but I understand that the committee today is going into the board session to discuss legal issues, so I'll try to keep what I have to say relevant to today's meeting. I'd like to address a couple of things pertaining to the document provided to the committee from the city at the last meeting. On the second page of the document, it states that a county decision to withdraw the application is contrary to law. This is just addressed. In this section, the document maintains that the proposed map and text amendment are congruent with existing county code. It cites two different definitions in chapter 26 to support this. It reads, the flood storage areas which are covered by the county application qualify as other designated floodplain areas within the meaning of the county's ordinance and applicable Wisconsin definition. Subsection 26.3.2.26 of the county ordinance defines floodplain as land which has been or may be covered by floodwater during a regional flood. It includes the floodway and flood fringe and may include other designated floodplain areas for regulatory purposes. The 2018 FEMA action recognizing flood storage areas within the Sawyer Creek watershed is an example of other designated floodplain areas for regulatory purposes within the meaning of the county ordinance. Goes on to say 2018 FEMA action recognizing flood storage areas within the Sawyer Creek watershed is an example of other designated floodplain areas for regulatory purposes within the meaning of the county ordinance. This is incorrect. If these areas were to be zoned flood storage districts, they would not be part of the regulatory floodplain. In an email dated September 8th, 2021, Michelle Hayes from the DNR states, The storage areas outside of the stream map floodplain are not considered regulatory per FEMA. Storage is state standard and flood insurance is not required. The document goes further to read, this is consistent with the definition of flood storage in the same subsection 26.3.235 of the county ordinance. And it reads, those floodplain areas where storage of floodwaters has been taken into account during analysis and reducing regional flood discharge. This again is incorrect. County application is to amend not only the flood maps, but also certain text within chapter 26, floodplain zoning code. Because in order for the maps, if adopted, to be valid, the county would have to amend certain text within 26 to include flood storage located outside of the floodplain. Because the code we currently have only addresses FSDs that are located within the floodplain. Therefore, the application is to amend both the current maps and some text within 26. This proposed text changes to amend the definition of flood storage, specifically 26.3.235, that particular definition, which states those floodplain areas where storage of floodwaters has been taken into account during analysis and reducing the regional flood discharge. To quote from the notice of public hearing, March of 2020, it says the proposed text amendment is to delete floodplain from the definition so that flood storage is not limited to areas within the floodplain. County code that allows for flood storage districts outside the floodplain does not exist. This document relies heavily on the threat or possibility of the DNR or FEMA issuing severe consequences should the county decide not to adopt the map and text revisions. And our 116 allows for a deadline of 6 months for a municipality to adopt the effective date of the letter of map revision is March 29th, 2019. We're 4 years past the deadline. It would seem reasonable to presume that if a severe consequences were on the horizon, the county would have received at least inquiries concerning this matter over the last 4 years. The document implies that the county would have liability and potentially be subject to damage claims should they elect to not adopt the map and text amendment. In doing so, it references a desk reference for local officials, FEMA document titled Floodplain Management Requirements, February 2005. On page 17 of section 7 of this document, which the section addressing liability, this FEMA document states, government agencies are generally not liable for flood damage unless the flood was caused by a government action. Except in a few instances, governments are not liable for naturally occurring flood damages. Government has, in general, no duty to construct dams, adopt regulations, or carry out other hazard reduction activities unless required to do so by a statute. It's only where a government unit causes flood damages or increases natural flood damages that liability may arise. If there were a statute that required the county to adopt these regulations, we wouldn't be having this dialogue. What statutes or laws is the county in violation of should they deny the zoning map amendment? If there are some, they don't appear to be cited in. What laws is Winnebago County potentially in violation of? Did the county zoning administrator have the authority to send a letter of commitment to the DNR on behalf of the Planning and Zoning Committee? Not according to chapter 26. And the petition and the application is to amend flood maps and amend the text of 26. Commitment letter was sent by the zoning department administrator to DNR for approval of the study, which initiated this whole process. Chapter 20, when outlining the planning and zoning committee's role, chapter 26 states 2662A duties. Planning and zoning committee shall oversee the activities of the zoning administrator and review and advise the Winnebago County Board of the County Supervisors on all proposed amendments to this chapter. Furthermore, Winnebago County does not have an appointed zoning administrator as referred to in chapter 26. It has an employee of the department with job title of zoning administrator. Chapter 26 in defining zoning administrator reads 2661. The designation. Zoning administrator designated under chapter 23 of the general code shall serve as a zoning administrator in this chapter. Chapter 23 reads the county executive 23-452 appointment. County executive shall appoint and supervise a zoning administrator. Such appointment is subject to confirmation by the county board. Although the issue of no appointed zoning administrator is a separate concern, chapter 26 seems clear. The planning and zoning committee shall oversee the activities on all proposed amendments to this chapter. There has yet been no record found that the committee authorized Mr. Rowe to send the letter of intent to the DNR. Did the planning and zoning department have the authority to file the application for amendment? Not according to chapter 26, not according to chapter 23, not according to state statute 5969. Chapter 26 reads 26-4E. Amendments to this chapter may be made upon petition of any party according to the provisions of 5969 state statute. It refers to that. 5969 allows for 4 entities to initiate a petition: a landowner, the town board, a member of the board, or an agency designated by the board under sub 2A. 5969 reads, the board may amend an ordinance or change the district boundaries. The procedure for such amendments or changes are as follows. 5969 5E1. A petition for amendment of a county zoning ordinance may be made by a property owner in the area to be affected by the amendment, by the town board of any town in which the ordinance is in effect, by any member of the board, or by an agency designated by the board to consider zoning matters as provided in sub 2A. The planning and zoning department is not an agency of the board to consider county zoning matters as provided in sub 2A. Sub 2A reads, the board may create planning and zoning committee as a county board agency, or may create a planning and zoning commission designated the county zoning agency. The board of the county executive authorizes the creation of county planning and zoning commission designated the county zoning agency. The county exec shall appoint the commission subject to confirmation by the board. Therefore, the planning and zoning committee is the agency designated by the board to consider county zoning matters as provided in sub 2A. It makes sense that the law would allow for only certain entities to initiate a zoning. Landowner, town board, a member of the board, or committee, not an employee in the department. Minutes of the first public hearing reflect that the planning and zoning committee had no prior knowledge of the proposed amendment. Also demonstrated by the fact that the zoning and map amendment was voted down initially by both the board and the committee. There's yet been no record found that the committee authorized Mr. Rowe to initiate the application. Have you read the application? Property owner varies. The document in question today. Property owner signature not available. I hereby appoint the following as my agent. Zoning Department, Winnebago County. Parcel number varies. Locations to be attached. Current zoning, Sawyer Creek floodplain. Proposed zoning, revised Sawyer Creek floodplain. Current uses varies. Proposed uses unchanged. Describe the present use, not available. Describe proposed uses unchanged. Describe the essential services for present and future uses, not available. Describe why the proposed use would be the highest and best for the property, not available. Describe the proposed uses compatibility with surrounding land uses, not available. It's problematic. There's more. But if the committee is going today into closed session to consider the legal issues surrounding this, I think you need to consider all of them. And I don't know how you could send this forward to public hearing, considering that hasn't been done according to legal due process from the beginning.
Any questions or comments?
Thank you for that information. You've done your homework.
Is there anybody else? Okay. Well, accept a motion.
You need a motion to,
Move to a closed session.
okay, also move.
I'll second that. We move into closed session.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. So what legally, if I could ask. Attorney Miller.
I want to wait until we're in closed session, because that's the reason we're going into closed session.
I was just wondering who cannot be part of it.
Closed session is.
It's only for the supervisors. So any of these people against the wall would have to leave.
Yes.
My staff, planning and zoning can remain. The public obviously cannot have access to it now. Supervisors who are not on the committee, if they are on zoning, or if they are on the board, can certainly listen in per your rules, but it doesn't look like that's the case. So, and then if that's the case, then it would just be the people around this table and against this wall.
Okay, no exceptions.
No exceptions.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
All of those people can speak.
Yes.
Okay. Could a county board supervisor that's on Zoom or here, could they speak also during closed session?
They can.
They can.
But they cannot. Wait a minute. Let me just double check. Hold on 1 second. 18.4. Any county board member may attend without voting privileges any open or closed meeting of any county board, committee, commission, or board. So it says attend. It does not say speak.
Okay.
So the people who can speak are you both.
Okay, thank you.
And John, just as an FYI, the vote's got to be roll call.
Well, it's the speaker. I will. Brian,
No,
is there any more?
Yeah, I think you conduct the roll call.
Oh, I do?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay.
yeah, you go one by one here.
Any other discussion on the item? Okay, we will do a roll call vote.
The other one is
Supervisor Egan.
aye.
Supervisor Gabbard.
Aye.
Supervisor Sestera.
Aye.
Supervisor Miller.
Aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous. We're in the closed session.
So now do we have to have a motion?
Resume, do we?
Closing it
Do we
was
do a
good enough,
motion
then
to
we-
resume?
Now you're gonna go to.
We can go right to.
Right to the number 5,
Okay,
because you're resuming,
we don't have to have a
Business.
motion to
No,
resume.
no.
Okay, thank you.
because you went to close.
Okay, anybody left?
Yeah.
Oh, they all left.
Well,
I'm sure they will. No?
here they come.
I saw you go there, I didn't notice the bottom. That's why.
Okay, as we return to open session,
You can keep that open. Oh, thank you. Let's marry her.
yes, there's definitely been plenty of hot air expelled in the last bit. Okay, so we're gonna move on to agenda item number 5. And let's see. Item A is rescinding the committee's April 14, 2023 vote, which approved not sending the Sawyer Creek floodplain amendment to public hearing. Is there a motion for that? Not seeing a motion to rescind the committee's April vote. So we move to item C from that, or
No, there'd have to be a motion on A, right?
No, there doesn't.
Okay,
Mhm.
No, it's potential.
No
potential
motion.
action. Yeah, it's an option.
Do you want to just ask for a motion?
on A?
Just read A.
Okay. Item A, rescinding the committee's April 14, 2023 vote, which approved not sending the Sawyer Creek floodplain amendment to public hearing. Is there a motion on that? I'll do the 3 times this time. Is there a motion on that? Looking for a motion on option A. Seeing none. We will jump over item B, which was sending the Sawyer Creek floodplain amendment to public hearing, and move to item C, which is withdrawing the Sawyer Creek floodplain amendment. Is there a motion for that? Is there a motion from the floor? Third time, is there a motion? Where does this leave us, Mary Ann?
That leaves us,
In limbo.
it does. Well, it basically says the committee is voting to uphold the April 14th vote, which said not to send this to public hearing, but yet they're not.
Withdrawing it.
Mhm.
Does this mean this can be taken up at another meeting?
Yes, I mean, it's, the application is still there and it's still pending and it can be taken up, I mean, right, Mary?
Mhm.
Can be dealt with at another meeting, certainly. If that were the case. And
and if you want the full county board to be apropos to this, you'd have to vote for B to get it back to your public hearing committee level,
Mhm.
and then on to county board.
Mhm.
So. Maybe you should take a motion as to B.
Okay, can we do that without doing the rescinding?
Well, you've already done 5A, so you're on 5B.
Well,
I did 5A
No,
and 5C.
but-
Oh, yeah,
But
right,
A
yep,
didn't-
A
right.
basically said don't send it back.
So,
And there was no motion. So that stands.
So it dies for lack of a motion, is that correct, A?
Mhm.
And then B
Doesn't happen.
can't happen
Right.
because there was. I'm just asking you, Mary.
No, I know.
So then we got to C and there's no motion.
So,
So we're back to where we were when we came here this morning.
yeah, 2.5 hours ago. Is there any desire to return into closed session if any of the committee members have questions?
Can I make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
you may,
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll second it.
okay, it's been moved in second, any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting adjourned.